Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends. Welcome to another day of Battle for Zendikar Spoilers. This is a huge day. We actually have 18 cards to go through today, so I'm not going to waste much time. Let's just jump right into today's spoilers. First, we have Wastelands Strangler, 1 black, 2 colorless. This is an Eldrazi processor, 3/2, has Devoid. When it enters the battlefield, you may put a card an opponent owns from exile into that player's graveyard. If you do, target creature gets -3/-3 till end of turn. So this is a rare. I don't know, it doesn't feel super rare to me, quite honestly. It is quasi-removal, but you do have to jump through some hoops to get there. It's fine and limited. I don't mind paying 3 for a 3/2. And if it happens to remove a creature, wonderful. But you can't completely count on that, especially considering he only costs 3. There's going to be a point you may just want to get him on the board, and you haven't had a chance to exile any of your opponent's cards yet. So he's not going to get that -3/-3 bonus, or there might not even be really a creature worth removing yet at that point in the game. In the late game, you get a little bonus out of him, but then again, in this format, in the late game, is -3/-3 going to be enough to deal with some of the threats that are on the board? So this one's kind of ho-hum for me. I would play him in limited, but that's probably about it. Next is Quarantine Field, 2 white, 2X. This one's an enchantment, and it's a mythic rare. Quarantine Field enters the battlefield with X isolation counters on it. When it enters the battlefield, for each isolation counter on it, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent an opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. So let's talk about constructed first. I mean, removal is always good, and if removal is shallow enough in a constructed environment, something like this could maybe break in. But quite honestly, we've seen some pretty good removals so far that's been spoiled in this set, and we still have some good stuff from the last block. So I don't really know if this is going to make it into Standard. It's just a little too pricey in Standard. You're paying 2 white and 2 colorless for Oblivion Ring effect, basically, which is okay, but not super great. Now, if you have extra mana to pump into this thing, it gets a lot better, and then you can maybe take out a number of cards and really decimate the board state, because this, notice, isn't just creatures, it's any non-land permanent. So that's good, but it's just very, very expensive. As far as limited goes, yeah, it's removal. You're going to play it. Even if you're only hitting one thing, it's going to be worth it in limited. I think this card really shines in Commander, where you could have a lot of extra mana floating around, and you can really decimate the board state with a card like this. Maybe hit multiple targets from different opponents, and could be kind of a fun card in that environment. That's really what I think this is built for more than anything. Next we have Horribly Awry, 1 blue, 1 colorless. It's an instant. This one's uncommon, has Devoid. Counter target creature spell will convert a mana cost 4 or less. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. So let's talk about Standard first. It does counter Siege Rhino, so that's the thing that will probably alone get it played in Standard, quite honestly. So it can hit some decent creatures. As far as limited goes, yeah, this is a good limited card. You're going to play it. You're going to be able to take out some of your opponent's early creature drops, and at the same time, if you have any processors, it's going to help empower them by exiling the card. So I like this. This is a pretty good card, I think. It will see some Standard play, I believe, in the right deck, and also very good in limited. Next is Retreat to Coral Helm. This is 1 blue, 2 colorless enchantment. It's uncommon. It has landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, choose 1. You may tap or untap target creature or scry 1. So this is part of the retreat cycle. All these retreats are pretty pushed. I'm usually not a huge fan of spending mana on an enchantment that might not necessarily do something the first turn you put into play, but these are pretty strong. I like the fact that you could always play this on turn 4 and still get an effect the turn you put it into play. Enchantments are also usually pretty hard to get rid of, so that's kind of nice too, although there is some enchantment hate already in Magic Origins, and I'm sure there's going to be some spoiled at the common and uncommon level here. But having said all that, just the fact that I can throw this down and then continually scry is actually pretty awesome. So I would certainly play this in limited. Now, as far as the retreats go in Standard, they're a little bit situational, and I don't know how reliable and consistent they're always going to be. In Standard, I don't know if I want to take the turn off to play this, and then I could go 4 or 5 turns without drawing a land. There's also times where holding on the lands to bluff is a good strategy, so I might not feel great about playing these retreats in Standard, but they're going to be awesome in Limited. I think they're also going to be really cool Commander cards and fun casual cards as well. Next is Coogans Insight. 2 blue, 3 colorless. It's a sorcery. Scry X, where X is the highest converted mana cost among permanents you control. Then draw 3 cards. I really like this, so I'll pay 5 to draw 3 cards unlimited. Absolutely, I have no problem with that at all. And the Scry effect, based on whatever I have in play, is just icing on the cake. If I have a significant creature in play, that's awesome. If I have even a small enchantment like a retreat, it's still very good. So I really like this card a lot. It almost starts to feel more like a dig through time that you get to draw cards off of than just your normal draw 3 ability spell. Almost like a cross between dig through time and treasure cruise in a way. I think it's good enough to see some constructed play, but yeah, it's going to be a great limited card, and it's going to be great in Commander as well. This could really shine in Commander when you have big permanents in play. Next is another retreat. It's Retreat to Hagrid. 1 black, 2 colorless. It's another enchantment. Has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, choose 1. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains death touch until end of turn, or each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. So this one maybe not quite as exciting to me as the blue one, but it's still decent. I like the fact that if you're aggressive, you can put this out and perhaps give a creature a little bit of a boost in death touch and maybe get in there for some damage. Or if you're not being aggressive or maybe more defensive or controlling, you can throw down a land and just drain life. Pretty good in limited. I would certainly play this again in limited. It is pushed enough that I feel good with it. Probably not a standard card, but good in the limited environment as well as Commander. Molten Nursery, 1 red, 2 colorless. This is an enchantment, has Devoid. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, Molten Nursery deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So this is a little reminiscent of the retreats, but I would say, again, definitely not going to be played in standard. But if my limited deck has a lot of colorless spells in it, yeah, I'd throw this in there and feel okay with it. I think it's a nice little addition. Again, it only costs 3. You're playing in an environment that's going to be a little bit slower, where you're not going to have to worry about wasting your 3rd turn to play something that might not immediately give you benefit. I think this will give you some good long-term benefit. This will probably be better in draft than it will be in sealed, just because you have more of ability to draft colorless cards. In sealed, you're going to have to really be dependent on your pool having enough colorless creatures or spells to make this worth your while. Next is the last retreat that has yet to be revealed, and this is Retreat to Valakut. It costs 1 red, 2 colorless. It's an enchantment, has landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, choose 1. Target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn, or target creature can't block this turn. The +2/+0 is fine. It's okay. I like the creature can't block this turn, though. I think that will do well in limited. In fact, I would probably hang on to this card and not even play it until the point where I want to kind of catch my opponent by surprise, maybe get in there for some real damage. Then I'd throw it down along with a land and make one of the creatures unable to block. I think that's the best strategy to use a card like this. Again, I don't see this happening in standard, but good limited card. Woodland Wander, 1 green and 3 colorless. This is a elemental 2/2 with vigilance and trample and has converge. He'll enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each color of mana spent to cast him. So it's hard to say exactly how good converge is going to be without seeing a lot of the commons and uncommons that are going to help enable it. I have a feeling that it's going to be pretty decent and limited. It reminds me a lot of Sunburst and some of the domain mechanics that we got to play in Modern Masters recently. So I think that they will give us the support at the common level for these cards to be good. Now, having said that, I can say without seeing any of those enabler cards, this is still a good card. I don't mind paying 4, even if I just pay green, for a 3/3 Vigilance Trample. I have no problem with that. That's pretty cool. Good limited stats. I would be more than happy to play that all day long. Now, if I have a 2-color deck, now it's a 4/4 Vigilance Trample that I'm playing for 4. That's pretty awesome in limited. Again, I'm going to enjoy that. And then, hey, it could potentially be a 5/5 and 6/6, but even if it's not, it's still a great limited card. So this one is real strong and limited. Doesn't really have enough evasion for me to say it's going to cross over into standard, but really good limited guy here. Next is Dust Stalker. 1 red, a black, 2 colorless. It's a 5/3 Eldrazi, has Devoid and Haste. At the beginning of each end step, if you control no other colorless creatures, return Dust Stalker to its owner's hand. Again, another good limited card. Maybe not much more than that, but I don't mind paying 4 for a 5/3. Those are Juggernaut stats. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And it has Haste to boot. And as far as its drawback goes, if you're on the defensive, it's a drawback, sure, but at the same time, think about Dash. Dash could be very powerful in Dragons of Tarkir. I wouldn't mind dashing this guy in for 5/3, returning him to my hand to protect him when it's not my turn against sorceries. That's not a bad deal at all. So this one's pretty interesting. Real good limited guy. Next we have Angelic Captain. 1 red, 1 white, and 3 colorless. It's a 4/3. And this is an angel ally with flying. And whenever Angelic Captain attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each other attacking ally. This card is pretty pushed for the allied theme. And again, all these allies just seem very strong. I think the ones that we'll see play is just going to depend on where the colors fall, although there does seem to be some opportunities to have cards that can cast multicolor allies like we saw Spoilers yesterday. But getting back to this card, it's a 4/3 flyer for 5 in limited. That's awesome in itself. And if I have some more allies, even better. Wonderful. I'm going to play this all day long in limited. As far as standard goes, yeah, if red and white turn out to be good colors to support allies in the end, yeah, this will definitely see constructed play in the ally deck, which every day I feel more and more confident is going to be a standard deck. These allies are just super pushed. Could you imagine having this thing out on the board, a 4/3 with evasion, and then you're able to drop an ally that gives it double strike and maybe the +2/+2 pump or something like that, and this thing's just getting in for who knows how much damage at that point. This thing could just sneak up on you and end a game. Really like this card. Again, even in Commander, I'm sure there's going to be ally Commander decks out there. Another good, strong creature for those decks. Fertile Thicket. Now, this is the first of a cycle that we're going to see today that are kind of like spell lands. Now, they're all at the common level, so they're not super pushed, so definitely adjust your expectations here. So this one comes into play tapped. You can tap it for green mana, and when it enters the battlefield, you may look at the top 5 cards of your library. If you do, reveal up to 1 basic land card from among them, then put that card on the top of the library, the rest of the bottom in any order. Okay, this card's going to be cool if you have a strong landfall theme and limited. If you want to make sure you're going to consistently hit those land drops for landfall or maybe for a little bit of ramp, this will do you well. I wouldn't run probably more than 1 or 2 depending on how dependent you are on landfall, simply because these are going to slow your deck down because they do come into the battlefield tapped. These aren't going to feel good necessarily when you draw them early in the game. This one could be an exception, though, because it is going to help you find a land. The other 4 definitely are not great, as you'll see in a few moments, if you draw them early. Next is Looming Spires, and here's the red version. Comes into play taps for red mana. When it enters the battlefield, target creature gets +1/+1, gains first strike till end of turn. Nice little combat surprise. It's going to be fine and limited. Again, I don't see myself doing more than maybe 1 of these in a deck, just because, again, I don't want to slow myself down too much. Next one is Mortuary Meyer, and this one taps for black mana, comes into play tapped. When it enters the battlefield, you may put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. Again, kind of a slow effect, and this feels real bad if you draw this in your opening hand. If you're mana flooded, great, you can hold on to it so you can use it, but a lot of times you're just going to have to get your mana down, and it's just going to slow you down, and you're going to get no benefit from it. And if you draw it late game, it becomes much better, of course, but it still kind of tempos you out and makes you draw the creature, which is a little painful, because now the land's already come into play tapped, and now there's another tempo play against you that you're kind of playing on yourself, so I don't know, not super excited about this one. Sanctum of Ogin. So this one taps for colorless mana. And whenever you cast a colorless spell with converted mana cost 7 or greater, you may sacrifice Sanctum of Ogin. If you do, search your library for a colorless creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your library. I like this one. If you're not worried about your color base too badly in limited, this will be a good card. So if you're playing a strong Converge theme, this might not be good for you. But if you're not, throw this in there. You're going to go ahead and have it as colorless mana until you cast something big. And when you cast something big, you get to tutor for another colorless creature card, which probably will be another big creature. So that's pretty cool. I do like that. So not for all decks in limited, but good limited land. Sandstone Bridge, and here's the white part of the cycle we were looking at. It comes into play tapped, tap for white mana, and when it enters battlefield, target creature gets +1/+1 and vigilance till end of turn. This one's also a little bit underwhelming for me. Again, it slows you down. It's coming into play tapped. It's a nice little combat surprise, but vigilance isn't the same as, say, flying or evasion or even trample, so it's not super exciting for me. Again, I might play a one of these perhaps in the right deck and limited, but that's probably about it. Finally, here's the last one in the cycle. It's Skyline Cascade. It comes into play taps for blue mana. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls doesn't untap during its controller's next untap phase. So, I don't know, not horrible. This one is a little awkward if your opponent doesn't have any creatures tapped when you get it. Again, maybe you can hold on to it, maybe you can't. Usually with these spell lands, sometimes when I build my limited deck, I just like to count them as spells and not actually lands towards my mana base, and they'll work a little better that way. The only problem with this cycle is these are common cards, and they're just not powerful enough for you to really want to include them as spells. So these really do have to double as a spell land, and there's going to be times where you're just going to need to get your land down, and you can't wait for your opponent to tap a creature to do it. So hey, again, I might see myself running one or two of these in the right deck. It definitely will be cool when it does work, and it can help you with an aggressive strategy, especially in a race. It can help you win. But again, nothing super excited outside of limited here. Overall, the nice part of this cycle, I think, is the fact that you are getting a quote-unquote free effect. It is slowing your tempo down to do so, though. Which brings us to the last card of the day, Spawning Bed. And this is a land. It can tap for colorless mana, or you can pay 6 and sacrifice it and tap it to put 3 Eldrazi Sign tokens into play, which is nice because they can sacrifice for colorless mana as well. I like this. You know, I play a lot with the Thopter Foundry in Magic Origins. Pretty much, I think every time I've ever opened it in my sealed pool, I've played with it. And again, you want to be careful if you're worried about Converge or what colors you're getting. But you put this down, you get mana for a while, and then when you get to the late game, you can go ahead and sacrifice it and get some tokens. What's nice about this is these tokens can even be sacked for more mana. They don't have invasion like the Thopters do, so that's kind of ho-hum, but at the same time, hey, you're still getting some creatures. Maybe you chump block, maybe you get some mana. Hey, it's better than nothing. It's better than just an extra land sitting on the board doing nothing for you. So I like this. It's at the uncommon, so you'll see it quite a bit in limited. It will circle around the table in draft, I'm sure. But yeah, definitely a good card. I do enjoy these effects in limited. Wow, that was 18 cards, so I think we got through them in a pretty timely manner. If you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, definitely a good time to do so. We have 2 more days of spoilers, so you'll be seeing at least 2 more spoiler videos. And then Friday, we'll start our full set review once the set is fully spoiled. And we'll start with looking at all the white cards on Friday, and then go through each of the colors, get you ready for the pre-release. That will be the following weekend. Also, if you haven't checked out our Patreon page yet, definitely check out the link in the top right corner or on the annotation in the next slide. We have some patron exclusive giveaways and a lot of other stuff on there. Check it out. We really appreciate any support from our patrons. Even if it's just $1, it really goes a long way to help us put out these videos. So thanks as always. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks as always for watching. These videos are made possible by viewers just like you through Patreon. Please check out our Patreon page by clicking on the top right. Down below, we have more links to quality Magic the Gathering content. And if you're interested in seeing trading cards open that aren't Magic the Gathering, check out the link to our trading card channel, Heroes and Legends Trading Cards. Thanks and have a great day.